Sorry, but this story doesn't begin quietly. It begins with gunfire, protests, and a city on edge. And what unfolded next would expose something far bigger than anyone imagined. What started as an ICE operation in Minneapolis would unravel a criminal machine so protected, so embedded, that it survived for years in plain sight. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why this was never just about immigration. As ICE moved to dismantle what officials described as the fraud center of Minnesota, the city began to fracture. During a law enforcement operation in Minneapolis, a federal agent fired in self-defense when a suspect, along with two others, tried to flee and assaulted an officer. This shooting came just 1 week after another ICE-related incident in the same city, where 37-year-old Renee Nicole Good, a local woman, was fatally shot by an ICE agent. Her death ignited widespread protests, civil unrest, and a fierce national debate over federal immigration enforcement tactics. Within days, Minneapolis declared lawful assembly as thousands of anti-ICE protesters flooded the streets. Tension escalated fast. One group attempted to breach a hotel where they believed ICE agents were staying. Streets filled. Emotions boiled over. But while the city focused on the chaos above ground, investigators followed a very different trail below the surface. Dirty money, coded messages, criminal coordination so precise it barely resembled disorder. And what they uncovered was horrifying. Protected drug routes, children vanishing into clandestine networks, public funds siphoned off silently. Court rulings quietly manipulated. This wasn't chaos, it was a system. Under President Trump's leadership, the Department of Justice announced its intent to pursue the total elimination of cartels and transnational criminal organizations. And in Minneapolis, that promise moved into action. At 4:18 a.m., while the city was still dark, more than 80 ICE, DEA, and local tactical officers surrounded a 12-story apartment tower known for housing Somali migrants. The order was simple: breach, sweep, secure. The first door charge detonated and the building erupted. Shadows moved through hallways, doors slammed, suspects tried to flee between units, agents fought floor by floor as flashes lit narrow corridors, shouting echoed, battering rams hit. Federal boots thundered against concrete. What they found stunned even veteran officers. Entire rooms had been converted into makeshift drug labs, tables stacked with fentanyl bricks, cocaine cutting stations, heat sealers running non-stop. Then a K-9 alerted at a drywall panel behind a stairwell. Agents pried it open. A hidden passage descended into darkness. Down below, the nightmare unfolded. 12 blood-stained surgical beds, metal trays, restraints. And in the corner, 5 children tied to gurneys, silent, terrified. In minutes, a routine immigration operation transformed into one of the most disturbing crime scenes in Minnesota's history. "I will use Title 42 to end the child trafficking crisis," Trump stated, "by returning all trafficked children to their families without delay. And I will urge Congress to ensure that anyone caught trafficking children receives the death penalty immediately." By sunrise, the scale of the operation was undeniable. 216 suspects in custody, many bearing Sinaloa cartel tattoos. Encrypted phones and computers revealed thousands of messages and financial records. This wasn't a local ring. It was a multi-state network, with Minneapolis at its core. And that raised the question no one wanted to ask. How did this operate for years without interference? Comment below if you believe powerful protection was involved. 72 hours later, investigators finally understood why the operation inside that tower was so organized, so well-funded, and so protected. Every encrypted trail led to one name: Judge Amina Hassan Ali, 52 years old, a high-ranking judicial figure with decades of influence in Minnesota. At first, agents thought the connection was incidental, but the deeper they dug, the clearer it became. She wasn't a bystander. She was the architect. Millions moved through shell daycares, phantom companies, and nonprofits. Court cases quietly dismissed. Bribes, altered rulings, forged approvals that kept traffickers and cartel-linked figures in the U.S. for years. All of it converged into a single structure, with Judge Amina at the top. Then came the most alarming discovery. For nearly a decade, billions in siphoned public funds had moved through Minneapolis-St. Paul Airport, Couriers carried the money into East Africa. The funds eventually landed in accounts tied to al-Shabaab, one of the world's most violent terror groups. That pipeline existed because someone powerful kept investigators away. Surveillance later captured Judge Amina meeting secretly with Isef Aden Bar, a nationally wanted trafficker tied to organ harvesting and Sinaloa distribution. At that moment, everything changed. This was no longer about immigration or fraud. This was a criminal empire protected from the inside. And what came next was not one raid, but a coordinated federal response. Stay with us. At 5:12 a.m., 1 week later, federal command centers across Minnesota lit up red. Surveillance confirmed fears. The apartment tower was only one node in a massive web spanning Minneapolis, St. Paul, Rochester, and multiple Somali-dominated neighborhoods, safe houses, stash apartments, underground rooms, storefronts posing as daycares, all tied back to Judge Amina and her enforcer, Isef Aden Bar. By 6:00 a.m., a historic mobilization began. More than 500 federal agents, FBI, DEA, ATF, U.S. Marshals, joined state troopers and local SWAT. Their mission, strike 22 locations before evidence vanished. Streets sealed block by block. Helicopters lifted into pre-dawn fog. At 6:47 a.m., the first raid hit a warehouse south of Lake Street. Armed lookouts opened fire. SWAT took cover behind armored Bearcats. Flashbangs detonated. Inside, industrial pill presses, fentanyl piles, cartel-grade rifles still warm. 3 minutes later, a duplex in St. Paul revealed a hidden tunnel beneath the floor. Inside, frozen organs packed in dry ice, proof of an international organ harvesting pipeline. At 7:18 a.m., the largest confrontation erupted near Cedar Riverside. Bar's inner circle tried to barricade the area. A brief gunfight followed. Controlled, precise, over in 4 minutes. No civilians harmed. Bar was captured trying to flee. Satellite phones still connected overseas. At 7:41 a.m., FBI corruption teams struck. 9 local officials arrested. Forged invoices. Airport cash logs. Foreign money channels exposed. At 8:03 a.m., Judge Amina Hassan Ali was intercepted in Adena, attempting to enter an SUV with diplomatic-style plates. She did not resist. By 9:30 a.m., it was over. More than 1,000 arrests. 56 tons of narcotics seized, 221 children rescued, a judicial empire dismantled, a terror pipeline cut off. Minnesota had awakened to chaos, but by late morning, everything had changed. In the weeks that followed, something unfamiliar settled over Minneapolis. Not peace, absence. Sirens faded, helicopters vanished, drug supply lines collapsed, overdose admissions dropped sharply, protection was gone, networks fractured, court dockets swelled, indictments poured in, old cases reopened, influence stripped away, protests erupted, counter-protests followed. The divide became impossible to ignore, but beneath the noise, one truth emerged. This network didn't survive on violence alone. It survived on familiarity, on silence, on routine. Corruption didn't announce itself, it blended in. And once that protection was removed, the collapse was immediate. The lesson is simple and unsettling. Justice doesn't fail all at once. It erodes quietly. And it only survives when scrutiny never stops. This wasn't just Minneapolis's story. It was a warning. If accountability fades, power grows comfortable. And silence becomes the most dangerous policy of all. Thank you for staying informed. If accountability and truth matter to you, like, share, and continue the conversation respectfully.